Howdy, it's Matt again with Covenanter Homestead, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about fertilization, or more specifically fertilizer. It's important to feed the soil, keep it fertile. Even as your garden is growing, you still need to replenish it because the plants are constantly depleting the soil of nutrients, and different plants deplete different nutrients. So it's important to keep adding these back, and of course compost and wood chip mulch is important for that, worm castings, etc. But you can also make, there are several different kinds of homemade fertilizer that you can make fairly easily, and I want to talk about one of those today. It's Compost Tea, and I got this idea from David the Good, and I'll leave a link to his site in the description of this video. And basically all you're doing is taking things that are in the garden that are a problem and turning them into a solution. So as I go throughout the garden, when I pick up the weeds, or we've mulched it with sheet mulching with cardboard and with mulch. So we don't have a lot of weeds this year, but as I'm walking around and I see a weed poking up, I'll grab it. And I used to just throw it back down on the ground because it can decompose and the nutrients will go back to the ground. But David the Good showed me this idea of turning it into compost tea that works really well with the weeds. I had heard about doing that with comfrey leaves, and I had begun to do that because comfrey pulls a lot of the micronutrients up from the deep within the soil from its deep taproot. But it never occurred to me to do it using weeds, which you usually have a large amount of, and they're readily available. So you can put those weeds to work for you. All you got to do is you either use rainwater from your rain barrel, or if that's running, that was my wife sneezing on the video there. Bless you.
Thank you.
If you don't have any rain water that available because you've used it all, or you just don't have any available, just fill you a bucket with your garden hose and let it sit out. And after a couple of hours is all it takes. The chlorine will evaporate out of it. I usually just leave it sitting out here for a few days. And I'll show you in just a minute. You're going to take that water and you're going to start putting your weeds and things in it that you pull out of the garden. You can also use any of the dead vegetation once you pull something up, or if you prune a plant, you can take that as well and throw it in here. And what you're going to do is just, you can see a lot of the soldier flies have laid their eggs in here, so you have a lot of soldier fly maggots in there. Those are actually good for making compost. Well, they're not the best, but they will help with your compost pile. But soldier flies somehow manage to get into anything, even with a lid on it. So what you do is you're just fermenting the vegetation, the weeds, leaves, old vegetables and whatnot. You're just fermenting those. So you'll put these in there and just give it a stir. If you'll come closer, you can see as you stir, you can see the bubbles. The bacteria, as they ferment, give off gas, and it smells terrible. Believe me, you can't smell it through the camera, but it smells terrible. But as it ferments, these weeds and leaves and such, it's drawing out the nutrients that they have pulled out of the ground and putting it into this liquid. And we just continuously add to it, but you want it to sit. If you add a bunch of leaves or weeds at one time, you'll want to let it sit in a warm spot, covered, to keep the mosquitoes out, for, depending on how much, at least a week. The longer the better. Give it a long time to really ferment and draw those nutrients out of the vegetation. And then what you'll do, if you have a sieve or some sort of a screen, you can use that. I just took the lid off of the thing, so I don't worry about it. And you'll want to mix about 1 part compost tea to 2 parts water. And as I said, this stuff really stinks badly. but that means it's working really well. And so after you do that, and again, you want to make sure that you cover this up to keep the mosquitoes from breeding in there. Just kind of mix it up a little bit. I might get my stick here. And then in this time of year, on a previous video, I showed how the heat is just so bad, even with deep mulching and watering, it's almost impossible to keep things alive. We're in East Texas, and it's very hot, very humid, and the days, of course, are so long at this time of year. The sun is up and just scorching everything. But you have a few plants that you want to try and nurse through the summer, perennials or biennials that you want to keep. I'm trying to keep my comfrey alive, so as you see, just hit it with a shot of this compost tea. And it's okay if you get it on the leaves. It's fine if you get it on the leaves. They'll soak it in from the leaves as well. You know, if you have anything else, tomato plants or whatnot that you want to hit with it, and it does again, it's basically free. You're just using water and things from your garden that you would ordinarily just discard, but you're putting it to work for you, and it's all part of trying to get that closed loop where you have all your inputs and outputs stay on your homestead. You don't want to bring in anything if you can help it. You want everything to stay as a closed loop, and so that your inputs all come from here. And it seems to be working pretty well. And again, I'll leave a link to David the Good's website. I want to give him the credit for this, and I hope it works for you.